I've got 3 goals for today's photo session, and the first one is to turn this studio into a high-key studio, which I know that sounds really easy because it's white walls. Surely it's a bit more complicated than that, and you're right, it is. Next is to make this a budget-friendly photo shoot and for beginners. So we're going to go back to basics and use really simple stuff like this as a background, which really are curtains from my house. And finally, I want to make it feel like winter, which is perhaps the biggest challenge of the 3. So to do that, we need to go back to basics. Let's get a light set, let's get a model in, let's get shooting. Sorry, Polly, you're not the model today. To help me out today, I've got the amazing Chloe. Chloe's going to be the model for this high-key photo session, and when I said we're going to make life as easy as possible, it actually starts right now, because the background for this entire session is always going to be a light-coloured wall. In this case, it'll change as we go through. That immediately says high key, but we've got to talk about Chloe because what she's got on is high key from the start, because light colours automatically make high key a lot easier to achieve. But not just that, the fabric itself is also translucent, so we're not going to get any shadows with deep dark patches appearing when we actually get to lighting this properly. In fact, she's so high key we can take a picture with the ambient room light and it should look, well, let's show you. Here we go. And it should look, and does look, quite high key, which means when you look at the histogram, it's mostly pushed to the right-hand side of this picture. There are some shadows, but just not that many. Now, there is a little bit of a caveat with this, because if you let your camera do auto exposure or TTL flash, it's going to look at this whole white, bright area and go, yeah, that needs to be a bit darker, and try and make it a mid-tone grey. So we need to talk about lighting, and we need to get it done properly. You'll notice something has changed in the picture, and it is the background. Because I wanted that winter feel, we've got just some cheap net curtains, and I'm hoping these are going to make it feel slightly icy. We'll see whether that actually pans out as we take a few pictures. But really importantly, they are still white with a white wall behind, so it keeps that whole high key thing going. Now, camera settings. I'm going to dial in some camera settings. I'm going to go with my flash sync speed of 250th of a second and f5.6 for a reasonable depth of field, ISO 200, and at those settings, no flash gives me this, no picture, which means we're not going to get any room lights contaminating this picture, only light from the flash. Let's talk about the lighting setup, because for the high key look to work easily, I've gone with the biggest softbox I can fit in my small home studio, and that's because the light from this is going to cast some shadows, but they're going to be very soft, gentle, nicely blended in shadows, which is really what this whole high key is all about. I've also got it almost on axis to the camera, just slightly off, so any shadows we do get are just going to be a little tiny bit off to the side. Now I'm starting with 1 flash, but we'll do a second look with 2 flashes. This is going to make life nice and straightforward, which is what you want to begin with. Let's take a photo. Let's just take a photo, see how it looks. Here we go. As you can see, we've got nice lighting coming in there. The background works very well. It does give that slightly icy kind of feel, and everything does have that high key look and exposure. I'm also going to add in this. Now this isn't a second light, but it is going to act a bit like a second light source. It's just a standard reflector, and you'll find gear links in the video description down below to everything I'm using. Now the purpose of this is to take some of the light from the main light and bounce it in and fill in the shadows underneath Chloe. They're not that many in the first place, but for this high key look to work, I really want to minimize them. So let's bring it in something like that. Now you will notice this does cause a bit of a problem. I can't really photograph anything other than the waist up, but that's where a 2-light solution is going to come into its own. It's subtle, but if you examine the no reflector image versus the reflector image, you can just see how it fills in the shadows a little bit. And that's this basic setup done. So Chloe, are you ready? Let's take a few photos like this. sometimes you just get lucky because Chloe's actually wearing not one but two tulle underskirts as her outfit, and the material is very close to the netting in the background. And when she interacts with that background, the two things just blend together seamlessly. You can do an awful lot with one flash, but you can do a lot more than twice as much with two flashes, and that's what I've got now. So we'll talk about the main flash in a minute because that's not really changed that much, but what has changed is the second flash. You'll see it right at the top. So I've got a Flashpoint Evolve 200 Pro Mark II and a strip box. That's going to do a couple of things. It's going to light the top of Chloe, but also the background, and you'll notice things have changed. So we now have an ice cave. Okay, well, it's just the net curtain pulled out into a V shape, but if you come inside, you should see that this has quite a dramatic look. Hi, Chloe. A dramatic look, and hopefully will feel kind of icy. Let's start with that top light and see how it looks, but I'm gonna dial in a few changes to my camera as well. I'd like a shallower depth of field because we've got some foreground interest in here, so I've gone for f2.8, but to maintain that no flash, no picture thing, I need to use high-speed sync flash. So I've got my shutter speed now at 1,000th of a second. I'm at ISO 400. And if you want to find out more about high-speed sync flash, then check out some of our other videos right here on Adorama TV. I've changed one other thing as well, which is my white balance. Now I'm shooting in RAW, so I could change this in post-processing, but to make it look good in the pictures that we're all seeing in the room, I've gone from 5,200K to 4,200K, which just gives this a slightly colder blue feel. Right, let's have a look at just the background light and see how that's working. So I'll turn off the key light. The background light is at half power, and you can see this is dramatic. It is backlit, but light bounces around the fabric a little bit, and some of the light is reaching Chloe's eyes, but not nearly enough for this to be a high key image. So that is where the key light, the one we were using before, comes in. So I'm going to turn that on. I've got it set to 1/4 power. Let me show you how the two work together. Now you could use a flash meter to meter this out, but if you're doing it by eye like I am, check the histogram of your image just to make sure that the face of your subject isn't blinking and blown out. I don't mind a little bit of blown highlights, but the face, I definitely want detail there. And that really is all there is to this particular setup, so I think we should take a few photos. Chloe, are you ready? Okay, let's see what we get. To make these photos just a little bit more interesting, I've given Chloe a prop, which is once again white, because it's the easiest way to keep this whole high-key theme going. As a bonus, I noticed this scene looks pretty good in the opposite direction, so I've just reversed the lighting around really quickly and taken a few pictures like that. I was going to finish this video by saying all you need for this look is some cheap net curtains and a budget white wig, but then I looked in the mirror and realized actually you need a model who can really pull this off to make that work, and that isn't me. So if you've enjoyed this video or you've got any questions about what we did today, then just leave me a comment down below, even if it's just to leave me your favorite emoji or click on the thumbs up button because we really appreciate that. Obviously you've already clicked on that subscribe button, so you don't have to click it again, but if you haven't, click on subscribe. I'm Gavin Hoey. Thanks for watching.